Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul Adams from Branston. Most of you know that already. We're here in the castle in Farnham, who kindly host this networking stroke interview group. I normally talk about the Bank of England base rate, which is apt because Daniel's here. I think, and this is a bit marginal this month, it's going to stay the same. I know the committee are split. Any thoughts, Daniel, off camera?
I think it's going to stay the same.
Excellent.
Yeah, I don't think they'll move it.
So lunchtime today, if it stays the same, this is Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm Paul. If it changes, forget it. So thank you to the castle. There's nobody here. And this young lady will not say a word on camera, even if we pay her £1 million. And we'll hear from Tom at the end. And Tom, don't let me forget what we've got coming up for Christmas, because I will forget. He's looking blank.
We have loads coming up for Christmas.
He's forgotten as well.
Tell me that.
Well, Shirley will remind us because he's sending out lots of emails. So I'm joined today by this young lady. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Lucy Brown and I'm the Chief Executive of Disability Initiative, a charity based in Camberley, but we cover Hampshire, Berkshire, Unitaries and Surrey.
Or what do you do? Well, what does Disability Initiative do?
So we're an organisation or a charity that supports people with acquired physical disability or brain injury, people of working age. So anyone really that suddenly discovers over a night or a period of time that they've become disabled. So that could be anything from a neurological condition like MS or motor neurone or Parkinson's, or it could be a range of other things as well that have impacted on them, amputees, or it could be people who've had a road traffic accident and have ended up with a brain injury, stroke, all sorts of different things, but mostly people like you and me, perfectly ordinary lives. Disability doesn't discriminate, and suddenly overnight every aspect of their life changes.
Now, I've got a slight vested interest here, because we do the audit for DI.
You do.
And there's a wonderful place, it's full of wonderful people. You've got an amazing group of trustees and a super patron.
Oh, we most certainly have. Do you want the story of that?
Go on.
And the origins? Well, the charity is actually at the moment 48 years old. So it was set up in 1975 and it was run at the back of a church hall and a little room at the back of an older person's centre and an old office in Camberley, which is now the atrium and a bowling alley. So it operated for a long time through 2 hospital staff, an OT and a physio, working with people being discharged from hospital after they'd had their acute rehabilitation, so a bit of physio, a bit of speech and language, a bit of OT, but actually transitioning home again rather than going into residential care is massive, because if you went home and couldn't use your arms or your memory had gone, imagine trying to do things in your house, your kitchen, where's your bedroom, how do you get dressed, all these sorts of things. So the charity was actually set up to support these people post-hospital discharge, and it grew and grew, and by about early 90s they'd rattled enough tins to raise about £100,000, which was a lot of money in those days. And they then went to the National Lottery and said, could you match fund this? We'd quite like to build a resource centre of our own rather than having 3 sort of disparate bases. And they were very lucky to get lottery funding. So they then went to the Borough Council and said, we want to buy a school or an old building and refurbish it and make it fully accessible to people who use wheelchairs, have mobility problems or cognitive issues. And the Borough Council said, well, actually, there's a handkerchief of land by the car park behind the theatre in Camberley. And everyone was terribly cynical because it was a small piece of land. But the architect said, well, actually, build up. Because obviously, if you've got a lot of people who are wheelchair users, you need space. You need turning circles, you've got walking aids, you have to be accessible. So the building planning permission was granted and the building regs were agreed and everything else. And then the founder, who'd also raised money, decided she wanted to retire. So I literally came to a building site with a hard hat and stilettos because I've been working in London. I had the best fun, but there was no business plan, which was a bit of a challenge. So coordinating the building and consolidating the 3 sites and trying to develop a business plan. So I was talking to somebody here just a little while ago about the funding. So 80% of our funding comes from health and social care. 20% of the funding comes from fundraising. So those are all the things such as, I will get to the patron bit in a minute.
It's all right. It's cool.
So we have to fundraise for our equipment. We have to fundraise to make sure that the building is up to standard. And I was talking to somebody very recently about building maintenance. Oh my word, estates maintenance, that's interesting.
You can speak to Paul.
So, yeah. So we built the building and it was spectacular, 3 stories, fully accessible. And we contacted Bagshot Park, which is where the then Countess of Wessex was living. Now, there'd been some controversy at that stage. Do you remember the fake shape story? And it was quite tough. And her and her husband hadn't done any joint events together. So we asked them if they would come and open our building officially in Camberley. And they only lived a mile and a half down the road, so we thought we had a good chance of persuading them. When they arrived to open the building, the world's press was there. I have never seen anything like it. There were mountains of press. There was CNN, there was every single newspaper you could possibly imagine, cameras everywhere. But Buckingham Palace was so concerned about making sure that nothing went wrong with this, that they had spent probably the best part of a month before with us to ensure that all the programmes were in place and everything. So that was a baptism of fire to me. I'd come into a building site, built the building, moved everyone in, we were into our first year, and then we had a massive royal visit. So they both came and we had the best time. It was absolutely, we had fun, everybody really enjoyed it, it went like clockwork. Nearly killed us all, but it was brilliant. And a week or two later, the chairman and I wrote to Bagshot Park and said, is there any possibility that the Countess of Wessex would become our patron? And in those days, I don't think she had any other patronages. I think they were just deciding. So I always say to her, not only are we her favourite charity, but we were probably her first charity that she became patron of. And so for the last 22 years, she's been patron of Disability Initiative, and she is very active. I see a lot of her. She hosted a roundtable discussion with some very senior officials a few weeks ago at her house for us. I just provided the cakes, and
there's always cake with it.
there's always cake. So we've been incredibly lucky with our patron, and as I say, she's hands-on, and she is the big guns. When there are big problems, I know I can call her, and she will, call to arms. She's amazing. But also, we were talking, our president is phenomenal. So Bill Bedell was the Vice Lord Lieutenant of Surrey, and he and his family run the Hampton Estate over in Seal. So it is just incredible, the place. But he has been a phenomenal president, and their networks are incredible. They know everybody to a point where they do a lot of filming over there. So whether it's Russell Crowe or Ridley Scott or people from the X-Men, usually I can take my team and some of the clients over to go and see what's going on. Poirot, Midsummer Murders. I'm the person in the back going like this. So I'll be an extra. So our patron and president, they're life roles, and they are both really committed. They know each other well as well. We've had a lot of functions either at Bagshot Park or at Hampton Estate or at Disability Initiative. But they fundamentally believe in the work of the charity, and they're hugely committed. Going back to the trustees, over the years we have a board of trustees, up to 11, all with varying backgrounds. Tenure is 3 or 6 years, sometimes 9, depending on COVID. And they are absolutely incredible. So our chair at the moment is a chap called Sir Andrew Morris, who used to be the chief exec of Frimley Park Hospital and the integrated care system. He's now, I think, currently vice chair of NHS England. And our former chair, who's now a trustee, he was director of NHS in commissioning and strategy, I think. We also have got the former chief exec of the Priory Group. We have the director of sustainability and risk analysis for Zurich Global. We have the former chief exec of the Law Society, I think around that. We've also had various high sheriffs who are now part of the board as well.
One of which has spoken here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ah,
No
that's
prizes
cool.
for guessing which one.
Oh, brilliant. We have the former director from Cisco Marketing. So we at the moment, we have an incredible group of trustees whose networks are second to none, as you can possibly imagine. But they keep me on my toes. And so whether it's health and safety, whether it's strategy, risk analysis, but one of the things I think we're most proud of as a whole organisation is that because of the trustees and their skills, abilities and backgrounds, they knew COVID was coming down the track. And we met in February 2020 and they said, this is coming fast and furious. The people that we're supporting are the most vulnerable, and their families, their partners and others are going to really struggle with this. Not only are they physically and medically vulnerable, clinically vulnerable, but also they are going to have lots of struggles because services are going to cease and the hospital is going to be hard to access. So they said, here's our constitution. As long as you follow it and do what you need to do, make sure you keep everybody safe. And we, by 2 days later, we had a fully operational plan. My team were outstanding. When everyone else was frightened of a cardboard box, they donned their PPE, they became formal key workers. I wrote to every politician, I wrote to everybody. So this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it, work with all our clients, remained fully open and fully COVID secure, but we also developed outreach and we were really agile, all within the letter of the law, our constitution, our insurances, training, and we were fully operational and not one of our clients got COVID. And we had a lot of family crisis that we averted, so a lot of intervention, a lot of preventative work, and the team, they're still together. The average tenure is 9 years, which in health and social care is a long time. But when people leave, they usually go off, and it's career advancement. But they're an amazing group of people. I could not be more proud. But our clients, our raison d'etre is to ensure that people live their lives to the full. They build on their abilities, because actually it's really tough when suddenly you have to rely on everybody else to do anything and your livelihood's gone and your status has gone and your expectations have changed. So we're very, very upbeat. We have goal-orientated programs, and every person that comes to us, no matter who they are, has a goal-orientated program, and we measure those goals, because once you see you start to achieve, once you understand you are able and capable, it's really motivating, it's really inspiring, and it's probably one of the most upbeat places you'll ever come across.
It's brilliant. Who's the gentleman on the desk?
Alex.
Alex is great. I go twice a year and he knows who I am, which is either he's brilliant or he admires my dress sense. But
A bit of both. He's actually a philosophy student. He's studied philosophy and he's brilliant. He also runs quite heavy-duty discussion groups. He's brilliant and loves all the people that come through. He's just an exceptional young man.
That's great. Obviously, I know what you do, and you have interactions with other agencies. And Alistair runs Right at Home, which briefly, Alistair.
So we support mostly older people to stay living in their own homes. We've got a team of caregivers with family care and living care.
Uh-huh.
So it's a franchised organisation, so I don't actually cover Camberley, but we cover up to Farnham.
Yeah.
Support a lot of people with some of the conditions you were describing.
And carers groups are so important. So in 2016 we were having a big celebration and the Duchess of Edinburgh was there. And she was talking to some of the carers and they were saying it's so hard, it's really difficult. And there was, for example, there was a woman whose husband had had a motorbike accident and he had a plumbing business and it was a very successful plumbing business. But as a result of the accident, he had a severe brain injury and he had severe cognitive impairment. And physically he was struggling. So he couldn't sequence. If he turned a tap on, he wouldn't know why he turned it on and he wouldn't turn it off. They had 2 small children at the time. She couldn't get support. She was running 3 jobs, raising the kids and looking after him as well. And eventually he found DI, so we've been working with him for a long time. She was an extraordinary woman. But the Duchess was talking to her and she said, "It's just, you just need to know other people are there. I don't have time to go to carers groups, and because of the working age, it's not a sexy area. You know, adults of working age with a disability and families, you think, get on with it. You know, you can work, you can. It's not like that. It's tough."
Yeah.
And so she said to me afterwards, she said, "What can you do about it?" And I went, "I think we can set up some groups." So within a month, we'd set up carers groups, and they never know what they're doing, which is the same I do with the team when we do team days, because actually they're responsible for everything. They're the ones always making the decisions, always having to take responsibility and be accountable for what goes on. So we set up these carers evenings, and they rock up, and we do some extraordinary things. So we had a magician in to help with memory skills at one stage. We always have food. Usually I cook for people because I'm very much involved with that.
Back to the cake.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not that good at cake. But you know, having been a carer myself in the past, I know it's tough and it's lonely to do that. So we set up these surprise gatherings, and we've also had gatherings at Buckingham Palace in the balcony room. Loved that. We've done all sorts of things. Cisco supported us, and we were able to take some of the carers and their partners to go and see Michael McIntyre, Strictly Come Dancing, and things at the O2. But because they never know, they love it. They've done everything from pottery throwing to debating. And I think it's always new, it's always different. And each time they always say, "How are you going to top this?" Oh my gosh, you know, and it's not easy. What we're having next month is the Duchess is actually coming, and I've managed to get the Mark DeLissa, who's the choir master who does the dementia choir. On TV, so he's coming, and nobody knows this yet, but they are going to form a choir in the afternoon with cake, with the Duchess of Edinburgh. So, you know, it's always doing something different, something innovative, something that takes people out of their comfort zones, because if you push those boundaries, you start to get a little bit more confident in what you do and how you do it. And all of us are capable, and it's just varying degrees and support that's needed to achieve whatever it is.
We've run a cricket session.
We might well do. We might well
That's right,
do.
I've bored everybody in this room about my cricket coaching.
So,
Last question on sort of DI for a minute. So, obviously you interact with other agencies and businesses. How easy is it to manage that?
probably a little bit about my background. Initially was in social work, but I was also an area youth and community coordinator, and then I became the first community care coordinator in the country in the 90s. In between, I've got a lot of, I have 5 children and 9 grandchildren, so juggling things around, but they keep me on my toes, as you can imagine.
They're all saying you don't look old enough.
Thank you. It's when I get Simon to edit this to make sure I don't look old enough. And so having a huge family, and it's a very blended family as well. My in-laws are from various different countries and things, so you're always learning, always sharing, and so on. And so networking is in my blood, with the community care, with area youth and community coordinating, bringing groups together. I worked in London. One of the things I did, I worked for a big charity before I came here. And it was a really diverse range of things that I had to do. I had some New Deal projects for the government, but one of the things, there was a group of Irish elders in Coventry, and they were recognised as an ethnic minority group. And my boss at the time, there were 4 of us in the leadership team. My colleague, who still comes and works with me now, is a brain injury expert, and the other 2, one was finance, one was chief exec, and they said, right, you've got to do this, this and this, and then go and set up services in Coventry with the Irish elders. And by the way, you'll be dealing with the IRA. I thought, oh. So I went up there, and initially it was really, really hard to network and talk to the Irish community. And it was only when I told them that my grandfather was Irish and had played rugby for Ireland once, I was like hailed. And it was such fun doing that, because and it was tricky because there was various working men's clubs and you knew there were some dodgy dealings going on, so you have to keep, but anyway, we set up services. and I worked with commercial services, community groups, other groups as well, faith-based groups, and just working together, making sure that everyone brought something to the table. And we were just talking a little bit earlier, it's about giving, because if you feel that you've given something, either of yourself, it inspires you, it motivates you to keep going and do more, because you can see the difference you make. Those tiny, tiny little drops suddenly become a pool, and then and all of a sudden you can do so much. And so in terms of bringing other people together, we work with a lot of corporates, we work with other voluntary organisations. I said to somebody the other day, I said, we're really quite a promiscuous charity, and she said, no, I think you mean prolific. And so, and so it's at all levels. We work with politicians. We had Michael Gove in week before last. We've had Jeremy Hunt in. We've had various politicians, various royals, various leaders of companies. But we also work with, recently, Keeber and Squires Garden Centre as well, and they helped us refurbish our garden after a golf day last year. We raised enough funds. So I think there are no boundaries in terms of who we work with, who we talk to, as long as it doesn't compromise our integrity, because actually that's our most valuable asset. What you see is what you get, and we're a very, very flat system, but we will talk to everyone or work with everyone from royalty to anyone really that either has something to offer or we can give back to them as well, and that's key to us. We're not takers. It's about what you can share together.
Well, you started down the road, because we always talk about where our guests started, where they were born, how they came to be where they are. So, potted life history, if you can.
Oh, well, I was born in Windlesham, so I'm a Surrey person, and lived and worked in Surrey for quite some time. Then I worked with children with behavioural challenges, and these were the kids that had no children's homes would support them, schools had expelled all of them, and these were children that had the toughest of tough lives. I loved it, really enjoyed it, but it does take its toll. So I worked abroad for a little while and came back and had my son, who is now 40, and he's got 2 children. His wife's Korean, so they go backwards and forwards, and the children are bilingual, so I never know when they can really wind me up. So I don't know Korean. and then I was doing the youth and community and moving on. In between, I was having lots of children, obviously. I think I'm divorced. But my ex-husband is very happy, and but he developed MS. So when that first happened in the 90s, I really experienced becoming a full-on carer because of the children, but I also had to work because I had a mortgage to pay. And juggling those things around means I can really identify with the carers that we support at DI. I have a postgraduate degree in business, got 2/3 of the way through my MBA when my then husband was diagnosed. And there were lots of other issues that obviously, but he's fine, he's really good, he's got mildest form, and it's a happy ever after, as it were, with him. We get on very well. There's not really a lot to say. I mean, it's like life journeys, life's tough sometimes, you overcome things. I've got to a certain stage now where things aren't nearly as dramatic as I thought they were in my 30s and 40s, and you do get through them, you build your resilience. Nobody in this room has had an easy ride, and life can be emotionally challenging, it can also be physically and mentally and financially challenging. You question your morals, and I know at the moment people's well-being it's difficult, partly because mental health is challenged with social media, children, young people, they've missed out on school, seeing that with my grandchildren. So I'm very people orientated, and I always think there is a silver lining. Nothing is ever wasted. So no matter what experience you've had or how difficult things are, there will always be something positive to find in that experience. It doesn't feel like it sometimes when it's, so they say it's darkest before the dawn, but actually we're all pretty lucky. We're sitting here and we managed to get here. We know what lies, it's about making the most of your life. So I remember when I worked in child protection, which was tough many years ago in social services. And my boss at the time, because I was quite a maverick, as I'm sure you can imagine, and didn't toe the line, because actually nothing ever changes if you stick within the rules all the time, which is why I love the third sector. But I do it legally. I never do anything dodgy.
I'm glad you said that.
But I remember I was in supervision with him, and I'd set up some groups with children who were really, some of them were homeless, and they'd been quite aggressive on the streets and so on. And I'd set up this group that was working really well. And he said, well, you should have asked me first. And I said, yeah, but you might have said no, and I couldn't have done it so quickly. And he said to me, the thing is with you, Lucy, you're a free spirit who believes in the amalgamation of souls. And at first I thought, I won't swear. I thought, what a horrible thing to say. And then I went home and I rang my best friend at the time, who was a lot older than me and a lot wiser. And I said, listen to what he said. And she said, that's the greatest compliment you'll ever be paid. And actually, I've always remembered that. And it's true. And I think we all become a little bit precious. But life has, it has not been easy. But I look back now and I think I wouldn't be able to achieve what I've achieved today if I hadn't had those ups and downs, from the depth to euphoria. But basically, it's making the most of what you've got, what you can give, what you can achieve, and seeing the good in people, which sometimes is a bit tricky, especially with the world as it is at the moment. So it's a bit of a potted history, but it's not.
It's interesting because, you've heard me say this before. Most of you know my situation hasn't been great over the years. And we have this wonderful phrase, my son and I, you have to believe it will be all right in the end. Yeah. And that sort of goes along with what you're saying.
Yeah. And
if we all work together, another one, this is turning into Paul's saying, together everyone achieves more, which mnemonically, I can't say that word, is team.
And synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all my favourite words. So what do you do when you're not working?
Apart from having all the grandchildren.
Yeah.
I like yoga. I entertain quite a bit. But I do spend, so my partner has 5 children and 5 grandchildren. So between us we have an incredibly busy life. I would like a weekend free. I think I'm spending time, my youngest is 19 now, and she's just started university. And if anyone's got teenage children or kids at university, you still worry about them all the time. When she phones me at 1 o'clock in the morning, say, I really don't think I want to stay here. I think you do. So I like walking, reading. I love going to the cinema, and just a recommendation, The Great Escaper with Michael Caine. I went to see it this week, cried all the way through, but not sad tears, just because it was such a simple film without hype, and it's based on a true story, and it was about recognising your life journey and how important it is. And this, I don't know if you know about the story, but this chap missed D-Day. He couldn't get a ticket from his older people's home, and he was with his wife. He'd moved into the home with his wife to be with her, and anyway, he decided he wanted to go to the D-Day celebration, so took himself off. So there was a big controversy that he'd absconded from the old people's home, but it was about the journey and why he'd gone, and just about their love affair, really, of 70 years marriage. And it was just a beautiful story, simple. And I would challenge all of you to go and see it if you get the chance to. It just reaffirms how life doesn't need to be Rolls Royces and massive parties and a couple of million in the bank. Nice, but not essential. And the other thing I was going to say was that I have a really dear friend who is an entrepreneur, businessman, and he set up a foundation some time ago. He's an extraordinary character, and I watch what he does, and this foundation just gives back all around the world all the time. And when the Ukraine war started, he had a hotel in Austria, I think, and he just made sure all the Ukrainians who needed shelter was there. They're still there now, and he's the richest person I've ever met, but he gives back all the time, and the most important thing to him is his family, and I think, I just admire that, that he gives back and he takes care of his family, and his oldest daughter's actually got disabilities, so he understands. He's got such humility, but he said, can't take it with you, so, which is absolutely true. So as I say, I would recommend that film, The Great Escaper, because it just reaffirms life, really, for genuine life, not all the expectations and what we think we should have because the adverts and social media tell us. Or my AI. I have to say, I love AI, which I get shot down in flames quite a lot at the moment, but it's got potential, especially in our particular world. But
Right, a question, why I'm asking this, I don't know what he asks. Talk to me about your musical tastes.
Oh my word! From the Monkeys.
We bumped into each other at a tribute band to the Monkeys.
I love concerts. I love live music. I love theatre. I go a lot. I went with my youngest child a lot. She's a great singer as well, which is handy because I drag her into the events and things like that. And actually my friend that I've just talked about, he's got a recording studio, so she recorded an album a couple of years ago, which is really good, but she doesn't want to do anything with it now, unfortunately, but never mind. So yes, Paul and I both really enjoy music, anything theatrical, dramatic, and I think we're really lucky around here. We've got the Yvonne Arno and G Live and various other places. I can't remember, I went to see Beverly Craven at the weekend. That was with Judy Zook.
Blimey.
I know, right? It was brilliant. It was such a good concert.
These people are too young to remember who that is.
80s, 90s, 70s, some of it. So, not like the Monkeys, I think everyone knew those songs, didn't they? So again, I think just sometimes when you've got pressure of work, it's really important to just take a couple of hours out, whether it's going to the cinema or whether it's going to a concert or something where you can't answer your phone and you can't read your emails. It's a place where your brain is just concentrating on one thing at a time. So, we're very clever at concentrating on lots of things. And I said, I don't know whether... My youngest daughter is on social media. Well, they all are, actually. And my grandchildren can unlock my phone. It's quite scary. They do coding and they do all sorts of things. And my youngest daughter used to say to me, well, we can do this, that, the other. She was the world's youngest member of Mensa when she was just under 3, which sounds a bit weird, but I needed to get her into a school and she had to have special needs to get into school. She had no special needs particularly, except for when they discovered what her IQ was, but they still didn't recognise that, so I had to take her to Hampshire and won as a test case, I have to say. She went to a little state school not far away from here, very close to here actually. And some of the research that the professor was doing with her as a result of that, they talked about indigo children, and they were talking in 20 years' time, we all have this ability to get information like that, but we don't dive into it, we don't mine the information, we've just got it at our fingertips. So when we were kids, or when I was a kid, if we did something about Romans, we'd go and do, rubbings and go and look at remains and all sorts of things, and we'd go to museums. Kids don't do that anymore. So their brains work so quickly, they can give you an answer, but they don't necessarily know why they've got to that answer. And I always say sometimes your brain needs to be a bit still and just concentrate on one thing because it helps with the neuro pathways. So something like you may sit and watch a concert or a film or something and your brain's still ticking over, but actually it's slower than it would be when you're answering your emails, checking your phone, thinking about what's for dinner, thinking about how you're going to navigate the traffic or what the interest rate's going to be, or an angle or a right angle, or some incredible thing that you're building. So again, that's another thing we concentrate on very much at DI is looking at building information, building skills, rather than going straight in and just having that top level superficial. And that's really important. We forget that, I think, because we live in such a fast-paced world. But my grandson said to me, it was his birthday a few months ago. I said, "Oh, what did your mum and dad give you for your birthday?" He said, "A raspberry pie." I went, "What?" I said, "What do you mean? What to eat?" He said, "No, Grandma, you stick it on the back of the TV and you code your TV." I went, "Oh." And so the world is so different, but it's in the last 3 years it's changed beyond our recognition. You know, technology, the way people think, the way people behave, the world has turned upside down. It's terrifying, but it's also moving, I think, at such a pace, and it's difficult to keep up with, but sometimes we need to be still to make sense of it, if we can, which isn't always easy.
Conscious time's moving on. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Lucy? Go on, Simon.
I was just going to ask about the AI stuff. I don't want to get you in hot water, but how's it helping your sort of, charitable and that sort of side of your life?
There's, I was talking with our OT the other day, Lindsay, and there's a lot of things about falls and different ways now that AI can help people at home who are isolated, whether that's notifying people where there are issues or reminding people to take pills and so on. I think from our point of view, from a business perspective, it's been really good. So we can ask it questions and it can come up with all sorts of strategies that we start to look at and draw what we want. We don't take it all. So there's a combination of grey matter and technology. I think looking at the way disability, you've probably seen there's been some technology now that's helping people move to stimulate the brain, so that sort of thing. So it's still early days. I mean, there's basic things like interactive apps and things, but again, what we discovered during COVID is there are so many people that are not digitally enabled, and it's quite shocking. And I have a friend who's 90, and he is extraordinary. And I mean, he's an East Ender, lived through the war, had an incendiary bomb under his bed when he was like 5, nearly got into big trouble, and he was on his own for a few days, and I was away, so I couldn't visit him. And so between me and the family, we got him an Alexa. And he went, "Well, what is it?" So we had to do it by stealth because he didn't like change. But anyway, he had this Alexa. And something happened to the Wi-Fi. He said, "Well, I'm going to have to take it apart and work out why it's..." And I said, "Well, it's not like a radio." He said, "I could fix radios." And anyway, we managed to sort the Wi-Fi out. And every time I go around there, he said, "Guess what? I've asked Alexa this and this, and I can play all this." He was married for 71 years, and his wife died a couple of years ago. So he's quite lonely, but he keeps, "This is the song we dance to. This is the song we used." And so just something as simple as an Alexa, with reminiscing and feeling very positive, but also his grandson was round, and we were arguing about the biggest population, whether it was India or China. Well, like it or not, doesn't matter who you ask, you're going to get different answers. So one week it was China, and the next it was India. But he knew, and he was so chuffed he knew, and the grandson was beside himself that technology had got it wrong that particular day. So again, I think it depends how it's used. It's evolving all the time. I think there's some really interesting things, but again, it's quite elitist at the moment. There is a threat, especially for...
See, interestingly, Elon Musk is speaking with Mr. Sunak today on this very issue. So it'll be in the news later.
Yeah.
How topical are we?
Very, very. So I would advocate it when we know enough about it. So it's a bit like mining, a bit like I was saying, don't take it at face value. You need to be able to understand it. And that's the same with anything we do, really. It's easy just to accept things. But so far, in my personal experience, it's been really useful. And I think we are trying to help educate our clients about what might be useful and what might be avoidable. So, yeah.
I sort of often think of it as like a sort of soft AI, in that you don't want it to take over every aspect of your life. You want to guide it to do the things that it's better at than you. So I often use it for automatic subtitling, and then you can go in and refine it for the words like names that it won't have in its database. But the thing is, because a lot of this stuff's cloud-based, it means it's feeding that back So often it's sort of evolving all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing where you think it's not making me redundant in my work, because I'm not going to sit there for 3 hours transcribing it by hand.
Yeah.
But it's now a thing that you can offer that you couldn't offer before, and it's a very specific need that's been satisfied. So, anyway,
I think it's the infiltration that's worrying as well. You know, encryption's really important from our perspective. I mean, I drive my friends mad because I keep sending them poems about them. But what I found really interesting sometimes, to take the emotion out of it, strangely, I had to write a really tough letter to someone a little while ago, and I don't know how to word this. I just put in what the issue was, and the AI came out with this. I wouldn't have thought of that. It was amazing, and I could edit it slightly, but it would have taken me 2 hours procrastinating. It took this 2 minutes, you know, to do it. So I think it's how you use it and how we work with it is really key. But the AI I have is quite closed, so it's not drawing at the moment on too much. It's learning all the time, but it's not as advanced. I've got one of my team is doing his PhD at the moment in health psychology, and he uses it a lot for his assignments and writing and research, and it's been brilliant. In fact, I think he might be on target for some sort of accolade or award or something. I can't remember what he was saying there, but everything has its place. You know, if you think back to our great-grandparents, thinking TV and mobile phones, they would have had apoplexy. You know, so it's how we use it. But there will be jobs that go, inevitably. It's how we adjust and adapt to work with it. But I do think in our particular field, and older people's as well, it can be a massive benefit.
Any more questions? Go on, Daniel.
You mentioned obviously life changes and events that people have and the financial difficulty that they have during that period.
Yeah.
Be interested to hear your thoughts around protection and critical illness cover, income protection, and kind of how they've maybe helped some of their clients, and your thoughts of having that in place.
I think there's been some issues around things like insurances and so on, unless there's been some sort of litigation case. So what tends to happen, the sequence of events, you'll have someone that's working and they may have business cover or pensions in the distance or whatever. A classic example, we had a chat with a chain of restaurants in America, and they were hanging out with A-listers. He had a very fast motorbike, came off it, had a severe brain injury. They had to come back to the UK because their health insurance ran out in the States. They had nothing here. She couldn't work because she had to take care of him. They had to rely on health and social, well, they had to rely on state support, really. There was nothing at all. And it was too late by then as well. They'd exhausted everything in America, and anyway, the system's different. I do think we're going down the American route, which is quite frightening in terms of with the CARE Act and people needing money to protect themselves. We haven't seen very many people, our clients, who've had any kind of protection insurances. There are litigation where the hospitals have messed up, or there's been a road traffic accident and someone's sued the driver or whoever. It's very difficult once you've got a disability to get any kind of insurance and support from that. But I do think, funnily enough, I was talking to the team, and there's something for charities that support the staff, because actually if they can't access health when they need it, they can't work, and therefore it impacts negatively on people we're there to support. But it's pretty basic. And health is, at the moment, in my view, is shot. It's a real issue. There's no money. We know most of the councils are virtually bankrupt. But the people that we support mostly rely on health and social care or benefits. There's very few people. People do fund themselves, but it's usually when they hit a time where they can draw on a pension of some description, or they're medically retired. And then they can purchase in. It goes against the grain, but I think people need to think about protecting themselves going forwards, because it is waiting lists. If you need a hip replacement, you might be waiting 2 or 3 years. I know somebody with a neurological condition cannot get a brain scan until July next year. We work with case managers through litigation sometimes, so if someone does have insurance, the case manager usually through insurance and solicitors will find something, but we'll only be a small part of that, because usually if there's a huge payout, they'll have someone with them 24/7. It's a difficult scenario with the people that we currently work with, but I think people who are still fit and healthy, it's worth looking into some sort of system where you will get the support you need when you need it in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and I'm thinking more around sort of critical illness and
The cover.
and obviously the lump sum you mentioned about someone there who's then struggling to pay the mortgage, and obviously
Yeah.
the protection in place that can obviously pay a lump sum in,
Yeah.
in the ability to be diagnosed.
I think, interestingly, a lot of the people have realised too late that perhaps they should have had that. But I think the mortgage company and the banks now are much stricter on having insurance and critical illness cover than they were before. You know, people could go off and go, yeah, I'll get it in, you know, from somewhere else or whatever. Whereas I think a lot of people with mortgages now, they have to have that sort of thing in place, and for their employment. But a lot of people are in low-paid jobs as well. So, you know, when you're running two jobs, working in a supermarket because you've got to make ends meet, and, you know, then working at a doctor's surgery, it's hard to then pay out more on a monthly basis.
Can I ask a question? But you obviously have fantastic retention figures with your staff. The average length of service of 9 years. It's incredible, not just for health and social care, but I think any sector.
Yeah.
But recruitment has been extremely hard over the last few years, I think everywhere. How have you found that, and how have you dealt with the challenges around that?
Actually, it's been okay. One of the things which was interesting, we got some lottery funding during lockdown because we knew there was going to be an increased need for people's overall well-being. So we were successful with that. But one of the things I also recognised, there was a lot of small businesses in the community that had been struggling. So we got some money I went back to the lottery and I said, I want to buy in some of the community businesses. So whether that's health and safety, diet, nutrition and so on. And we will pay the sessional workers. And they funded that. They funded it for 3 years because it builds the community, it helps people with their businesses. So if there's a specific skill, then we will buy that in for a period of time. That might be music therapy or drama therapy, or it could be a dietitian, or it could be a carpenter, or whatever it is that we need to help people develop their skills. So that keeps things fresh and interesting, and new skills coming in, and people learning about disability and, you know, unconscious bias and that sort of thing. But we also have volunteers that come in. We also have social work students. And I think we look very much around what the person's potential is. So one of our incredible key workers came to us 6 years ago now, and she worked in Topshop, I think. But she loved people. Her customer service was second to none. And she's now just finishing a degree in psychology and counselling. She does social media and all sorts of things. She's amazing. And I think what we try and do is recognise the individuals and bring them in, and then build on their abilities as well. And they very much have ownership around their personal development, and we exploit them, to be honest, not in a negative way.
We'll be editing that.
No, they know that everything's about exploitation. But if they have a skill, let's build on it. If they have a certain ability to do something, let's develop it further, because actually our jobs are all about human interaction. So no, we haven't. I think we've had the last 4 years probably 2 new people. We have a good churn. So it is fresh, but because we have volunteers and because we have sessional workers, and sometimes the sessional workers will come and work part-time for us as well. And we're very, very flexible in the way we work, but everything we do, so we've got the charity, we're a service company, so it's a non-profit, but the charity owns the service company, as we know. And so any surpluses that we might make then goes back into the charity to buy into making sure the services are run. And we have the right kit and equipment and the right training and so on and so forth. But we've had, financially, we've had challenges and so on. But I think we very much look at what's the term I'm looking for? So by utilising what's available, we're an attractive place to work. We do all of this. We've got the charity commission that we have to adhere to, auditing, contracting with adult health and social care, working with health and all issues around that. We do all of that on 13 full-time equivalents. So we rely on our relationships. That's key. But and we work hard. We really do work hard. It looks like it's great fun all the time, but underpinning all of that is a really professional team. And I think they're proud, and that's why they stay. They really love what they do. And we have such a flat, I mean, I see all the clients, I make sure I see the clients all the time. I know them, I know their families, because that's been lost over the last 25 years. People, they're just a statistic or, a code or whatever it is. So no, we haven't had a problem, and we've been really lucky. I'm saying that. I don't know whether it's any good. So,
Give the chair, give the chair.
Thank you. So,
Have you tried any complementary therapies at all?
Yeah. Absolutely, we're really into that. And we do also do yoga. So the guy who's doing his PhD, he's also a yoga teacher. So when I say exploiting any skills, go out there. We do gong baths, we do meditation, we have over, I think it's 170 different sessions throughout the week, different things to look at goals. But yeah, I mean, that's something we really do.
You should ask him what he recommends.
What would you recommend?
Probably bringing in some Reiki
Yeah.
at a high level. So,
Are you offering?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's brilliant. We'll make sure we check swap cards.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have sorry? Yeah, we do crystal bowl sound baths as well,
Oh,
which is
lovely.
another level from the gong baths.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Shelley and I sort of work as partners with that part of the business. So
Yeah.
be interested to talk to you about that.
It'd be brilliant. I mean, the other thing is that I think a lot of the people that we work with, a lot of their relationships change, and carers go in and support, and it's always about functional touch.
Absolutely.
Sometimes just that human touch makes a fundamental difference
Yeah.
to people's overall well-being. Yeah.
I did work for some years as a complementary therapist, just a volunteer at Phyllis Tuckville, and I realised very quickly, the people who were the partners, and it was always loving touch, suddenly became functional touch, and they had to distance themselves emotionally from the partner they'd chosen for life,
Yeah.
just to be able to cope. And you could see that change. So what we were bringing in was just caring touch.
Yeah.
Because the nurses are there, bless them, but they've got a job to do.
Yeah.
So they need to get X, Y, and Z done, because there's another dozen people needing attention.
Yeah.
So we actually had the time in our role to just spend as long as people needed. So and therapy was often they don't need a massage, but just sit and chat with them or hold their hand or something.
Yeah.
That was lovely, dear. Thank you. It's just 20 minutes of my life.
Yeah, and it is amazing. And my team as well, I try and encourage. There's a woman that still works up there, does reflexology, and I'm always saying to them, go and see her, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we all need that. We all need, something just a little bit more, that connection. But yeah, no, it sounds amazing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more?
Mine's no question, but I have a colleague or a friend whose husband has, MS or something similar, and he's unable to work, and he's home tired, so tired, he can't really do things with the kids. Sounds like the kind of place that he should.
Yeah, it could be. He just needs an assessment with fatigue and actually adjusting his lifestyle. I mean, our OT, we have access to psychology and all sorts of things as well, but and Sorry Welfare Rights Unit and amongst others. So again, we work with so many different organisations. But quite often fatigue with MS is about managing, changing lifestyle as well. People may not necessarily need a service, but they need advice and support. If it is MS, I would suggest in the first instance contacting the MS Society and just finding out what it is, because the stress on the family as well when that happens. Because I think, like you said, your expectations in your relationships change, And I know through my own thing, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got to do the dishwasher, I've got to do the uniforms, I've got to take the kids everywhere. And you do, it's not a resentment, but it's almost, I don't know what the word is, frustration. So, you know, it impacts on family as well. But it depends on what his disability is. But by all means, you know, call in, and if it's something that can be supported outside of a service like this, and it's just small interventions, I would recommend it. But it's, you know, when people have got a high level of need, where we know they're going to deteriorate and there's going to be breakdown without input from us, then we've got a local man actually from Farnham. He was in insurance, and he got dropped, fell downstairs, a massive brain injury. He's 35, and he can't remember anything. He looks, I mean, it has some functional mobility. To look at him, you'd never know. It looks like a hidden disability, but actually, when you talk to him, it's very, very different. And his wife can't leave him on his own, so he's coming to us. We're working with him. He's started to have seizures as well, so we're looking at ways that we can prevent those, trying to identify what's going on. So I think in the first instance, it's always worth exploring what the issues are, and by all means, you know, call in, and or ask them to call in, and we can either signpost or suggest, you know, if there's anything we can do to help.
Fantastic. I think the time has come to thank Lucy for her time in the traditional manner. Thank you very much, Lucy.